It is such an honor to have you here. My first question for you is, Kelly, let's go back to the very beginning. We would love to hear about your story and career development. Let's start from your post-secondary experience. So tell us about how that led you to where you are today.
Hi, Alina. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on the show. Talking about my post-secondary development, I haven't followed the normal trajectory that most other company owners or founders or publishers, I guess most people follow, because what happened was really when I finished school, I started getting into a little bit of a party mode, finished 2 years of varsity, and I quit varsity because, just having too much fun with my life at that stage. Didn't focus on the studies at all. And that lasted for quite a while until eventually I realized, hey, I needed to start doing some work and I need to start building a life. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I've always tried to do things differently. I struggled working for somebody else because I would always be there and I would disagree with how they're doing it. I'd be like, but I can do this better. I can do this better. So I embarked on a series of little entrepreneurial adventures from there. I had a soap factory. I had worked at an engineering firm. I was part owner in a restaurant. I had a little game shop. I had a video store. I had a variety of things throughout time until I think it was 1996, decided to move from a small town where I lived in South Africa to Johannesburg, which is one of the main cities in South Africa. And I met up with some of my mates there that started this publishing company. At that stage, I was involved in building affordable housing. And I still remember the day we went and bought computers together. I was doing really well in the housing and they were doing the publishing thing. And we bought these old Pentium 2 computers to publish the books on and do all the layouts and everything on. Short, eventually I decided I didn't enjoy the affordable housing anymore, and I joined these friends of mine in the publishing company, and we started publishing what we call trade directories those days. So it was little A5 books. I mean, I'm talking the time before the internet reached South Africa. We published these little A5 directories where we would go with the Restaurant Association of South Africa and get a list of all of their members. And then we would put people that supplied products and services to the restaurants, and we would put them all in this little pay for the space, and we would mail a book to every restaurant in South Africa, and they could use it for their sourcing. So we did these little trade directories, and it went really, really well. And then what happened was we did that for quite a few years. And then my business partner, who's my current business partner as well, interestingly enough, at that time, Sven went out and he did a barter deal was one of the flight companies, Flight Center, a travel agent in South Africa at that stage. And they wanted to be on the back cover of all directories. And in return, they gave Sven a free around the world ticket where he could fly around the world and have as many stops as he wants. So Sven got on this flight, stopped in New Zealand, and he decided to start a publishing company in New Zealand. And we published Africa, but then the partnership ended because I found another thing that interested me, which was marketing, advertising, mainly event branding, signage and stuff like that. So I went into that business and I built a big business in South Africa. I did that for about 14 years. I was involved in the branding and marketing for a lot of the large blue chip corporates in South Africa. So when I'm saying branding and marketing, it's more just around the signage and the banners and the, creating stuff and putting it up and making sure that everything looks pretty. 2015, I decided to sell the company and just decided to retire for a while. Took my wife and kids and we started traveling. A month in Mauritius, we came and did a 13,000-mile road trip through the US, went to Europe. We kind of all over the place, very nomadic. And of course, when I got to the US, first place I went in Florida is to go and visit my old ex-business partner, Sven, from the days in South Africa. Now, we've obviously kept in touch. So I go visit Sven And he just started this new series, the Innovate series of books. Long story short, got involved with him again. So while we are doing this nomadic thing and traveling, I also became a 50% partner in the business and started publishing the Innovate series with Sven. And that's how I am where I am today, just publishing books. Kind of very roundabout way, to be honest, but life works out the way it must.
Callie, this is so inspirational. While you're talking, I'm thinking I need to have more fun with my life. It sounds like you've had so much fun. And, a side question for you. You talked a lot about many different business ideas. How did you move on from one idea to the next? Was there a way for you to keep one sustainable before you moved on to the next?
Lena, it's actually a very good question. And the honest truth about this is that I didn't. That was one of my biggest problems. And one of the things that I would tell young people today, if they're going to start out with their life and want to embark on an entrepreneurial journey, is to take a step back and to honestly, properly think and work out some sort of, everybody must have some sort of plan on how they would rate ideas before they jump into it. My problem throughout my life was that I'm very impulsive, or I was very impulsive. So I would sit and come up with an idea, and tomorrow I would register a URL and I would set up a website and I would start doing things. I mean, it's until recently, one of my New Year's resolutions this year is actually, I started going through my list and I went like, you've got 9 businesses that are all little pieces. They all started, but it never went anywhere, or, you're not focusing on them. I've got an Amazon store in the US that sells soap dispensers, a whole bunch of things. And the advice that I can give is to try and avoid that. For me, it's worked out because luckily on some of these things, I got really stuck in and I got involved. But in all honesty, if I had gotten rid of all of the other silly ideas and I really focused on a few, I guess I would have been a lot further down the line.
And how would you select those specific ideas? Is there a formula, a way to do this?
I think it's each to his own. But what I've started doing lately is started thinking about these new business ideas along a couple of main key points. Number one, can I see myself enjoying it, over a longer period of time? I mean, is it going to be something that's going to take a lot of my time? And is it going to be enjoyable time, or is it going to be something that I hate? The second thing is, obviously, I need to look at what is the value proposition? What's the ROI going to be? How much money? Is there a possibility that it can grow and that I can make a lot of money out of it, or that it can be sustainable? I guess those are really the 2 main ones. The third one, I guess, oftentimes that starting lately that I think more about is, what would be the bigger meaning of this in the world? I've been thinking about a bunch of ideas around green tech and things like that, and I'm burning to start it, but I want to first make sure that the publishing house is 100% organized and that I have people that can take over from me when I move on, or, that can free up some of my time. But yeah, I think meaning is also a very important one. Don't want to spend your time just to make money and do something that causes harm to the world. And you also don't want to, it's got to be a balance. I think each to its own. Just for example, when we moved to Vancouver, I moved to Vancouver, Canada in January 2021. And I set up a little YouTube channel, mostly for the family back home, where I was like telling them what's happening in Vancouver and how it all goes. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy being in front of the camera on YouTube. I enjoy showing people the walks and the parks and everything. And it's great. And I've made a lot of videos, but there's no real revenue in it. Okay, I got some YouTube made me a partner recently, and I earn about $50 a month out of it. But I still decided to carry on with it because I really enjoy doing that. I guess I hope that answers your question. It's not a very simple answer, to be honest.
It's inspiring. And while you're sharing your wisdom, Callie, I remember this quote that said, oftentimes creativity is not only the process, but also the end result. It's the process of creating that makes everything that's worthwhile. And I recall when I was in high school, I started this random e-commerce store shipping cheap things from Alibaba, Taobao. And
Yeah.
I got my friends' parents to bring it back to Canada on their trip back. And we sold that in our high school, and it worked really well. And I think it's these little ideas, these creative random things that kind of keep us going. And sometimes I find structure very tiring. It drains me a lot.
I'm with you on that. But
Yeah.
Lena, I think it's also people are different, and the first thing that you need to do for yourself before you embark on any journeys is you need to be honest with yourself. You need to understand who you are. Are you a creator? Are you somebody that functions better under structure? Because the one thing that makes us human so amazing is that no two of us are the same. We are all different. We operate differently, but it's very important to not just follow what other people tell you, but to also, look inward and understand who you are. Trust me, it'll make your life a lot easier going forward if you really know who you are. Structure, I'm also like you. I just can't do structure. I guess that's one of the reasons that I'm looking for people to replace me or to take over my duty so I can go and run after the next thing, because that's what gets my blood flowing. I like solving problems. I like fixing things. I like coming up with ideas, and yeah, that's it.
Well, someone's got to come up with the idea, and then someone's got to come up with the system and structure. It's God made everyone for a reason, everyone different and unique for a reason.
Correct.
Yeah. And, while I'm in New York, I've had some epiphanies. I realized that in New York, there's no shortage of wealthy or poor or really beautiful or just average individuals. Everyone is unique and everyone's beautiful. Everyone is awesome in their own way. And so what I've come to realize was all the things that I cared about before, such as, being beautiful, being successful, being wealthy, making that $1 million, all of a sudden didn't really matter to me anymore, because everyone's so different and everyone's so valued for being different. And so the three things that I came up with yesterday that were important to me, the three new things that were important to me, were passion, purpose, and the process of creating value for society and helping people.
I think you hit the nail on the head. They were saying the other day, I listened to a podcast about psychology and what's the true meaning of life? What drives people? And they were saying that there's actually the three pillars, and I think you kind of hit them exactly almost. The first one is the pursuit of happiness. We want to be happy. We want to do things that makes ourselves happy, but that makes us happy. But happiness is not everything, because it just doesn't work like that. The second pillar is meaning, purpose. It's like, what have I done that makes the world a better place, or that helps somebody else, or that helps a stray dog? We need purpose in our life. And then the third one is variety. Apparently, that's also a very important factor in becoming a complete, happy human, is that you need to have variety. So you also need to be able to do things, other things, and not just be stuck in one rut. Anyway, sorry I interrupted you there.
No, all good. This actually leads me to my next question. So, Callie, we know you're very experienced in the distributing and publishing industries. Why did you choose this career? And what does an average day of life look like for you?
I think this career more chose me, just like randomly. I like words. I like books. I read a lot when I was a kid, so I really do enjoy books. The first time around in the 90s, my friends were doing it and I just kind of tagged on because it looked like a lot of fun. What makes it awesome is that you actually, and that's the kind of publishing that we do, where we go into cities and industries and regions around the world, and we tell stories about innovative companies and innovative people in these regions and industries. is great because I've got a thirst for knowledge. I always want to know about the next thing and what's happening and what's going on. The publishing helps with that. I mean, can you imagine? We publish books in over 50 cities around the world where we tell the stories of innovators in those cities. I mean, it's through books like these that I've met people like you, which is amazing. I mean, that's what I love about it. What does an average day of work look like for me? Not at all what I would like it to look like. As the president of the company, unfortunately, it means dealing with the accounting, making sure that the money is there, finding printers. There's a lot of not so much fun admin jobs and taking care of dealing with issues. And our company is still bootstrapped, and the publishing industry, while I love it and it's great and lots of people love it, is not one of the most lucrative industries in the world. You don't go viral with a book and make a fortune. So we're always still bootstrapping, and we're growing a lot. So a lot of our new cities and everything. So it's always cash flow. Like if you're going to become an entrepreneur in your life, it's something that you are going to deal with. I'm pretty sure you've had that experience as well. Sometimes it's going absolutely amazing and there's lots of money, and other times not so much. And you've got to make all kinds of plans to make payroll at the end of the month. But anyway, back to a day of my life. Basically, in the mornings, I start up first, deal with everything that happened because we've got a team around the world, jump on a bunch of Zoom calls, speak with people, mostly admin. And then in the afternoons, hopefully I get some time to actually start spending time and doing what I really enjoy, which is reading up on these companies and trying to figure out what's happening with these companies and with innovation and what's the latest things around the world. I am starting a podcast soon in this year where we are going to look at innovators and where I'm going to chat with innovators. And the main reason I'm starting that is because I want to force that to become part of my daily work, is to talk to interesting people, because that's really the fun part of this job.
Sometimes creativity requires you to be in the zone when you come up with the vision, the strategy, and that's the complete opposite of what we talked about, such as housekeeping, admin. So how do you make that transition, Callie? It's hard.
It is really, really hard. Interesting question, Alina. Let me just consider this a little bit. Because how do I make that transition? I actually don't really. I just I try to get as much of the housekeeping done in the mornings and then try and move on. But in all honesty, I think oftentimes it's more when I go down a rabbit hole, which is actually supposedly is completely the opposite of what you should be doing if you're focusing and working effectively. I subscribe to a lot of newsletters about innovation, and I get notifications when new companies come into our books. And sometimes I'd be sitting here doing some work and I'd see an interesting company that's just popped up on my radar. And then I would go online to their website, go and read up on what they do. And then 3 hours later, I've come up with a couple of ideas. I just go down the rabbit hole.
Wow. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because sometimes I find it incredibly difficult to switch from admin, housekeeping, and all of a sudden to strategizing, coming up with a vision, the creative idea. Because I find that when I do all the housekeeping admin, I'm already so drained because it's so boring at times. It's hard to enter the zone. So what fosters creativity for you? What enables creativity for you?
It's just very random, to be honest. I don't think that there's anything specific. I'm a very creative guy in general. And I think oftentimes when you speak about creativity in the sense like you need to make the switch, you're like, okay, I need to start thinking creatively about my business. I'm like a fire hose that's not being held. I just spray all over. I'm just all over the place, if that makes sense. Creativity, I oftentimes struggle to be creative in my business specifically because my creativity just runs all over the place, if that makes sense.
Callie, this gave me some solution for myself, actually. Now I'm thinking, well, when I'm doing the housekeeping admin stuff, maybe I can turn on some TED Talks or subscribe to some innovation newsletters like yourself and just let it go all over the place. And I think that keeps the balance.
It does. And what it also does, don't get me wrong, I still get creative in the business because oftentimes that creativity where you see something else and you think about, oh shit, how would I make a better ocean power generator? What it does is it keeps your creative juices flowing. So when you start going back into the stuff that you need to be creative about, you still have that going. It's an easier transition. I know that you've got people that go out there and go, hey, we've got this problem to solve. We need to think about this. We need to create this. We need to do this. We need to plan this podcast this week, and we need to do things that way. I'm much more of an impulsive person. So for me, it works a lot differently. I would rather go out and I need to plan this now, but I don't feel it. So I'll just do something else. And when I feel the creative juice is flowing, then I jump back in and I focus it where I have to.
I love that. Now let's go into a little bit of a different question. We talked about creativity. Now let's talk about landing a dream job and career development. We know that landing a job is becoming increasingly competitive, especially in today's market. What are some tips you can give to new graduates, especially those who are trying to get their dream job?
Well, the most important tip that I can give to new graduates that's trying to get their dream job goes back to what I said earlier on about knowing yourself, understanding what your dream job is, and really making sure that you are picking the job that is your dream job. Because if you've done that, you will be passionate about it. I've hired loads of people throughout my life. And I oftentimes look at the way that people approach these things. And what they don't do is they don't show that they're really interested and that they're really passionate about it. It's a cookie cutter CV. It's not tailor-made to the job. It's almost as if you can see that they put no extra effort into it. I think that's the biggest thing. We just got an intern in last week, actually. And what I loved about her was she sits in the US in Cincinnati or somewhere. What I loved about her is she came onto the Zoom call. She was friendly. She was excited. She was asking questions. You could see that she's really interested in this. And this is an unpaid internship that we got through an agency. We actually pay an agent. It's a whole big thing they're doing. What I love is that I could see her passion for not specifically our business, but her passion for making herself better. She works a part-time job. She studies part-time, and then she offers up 2 hours a day to be an unpaid intern for a company. She's actually going to be running the social media for the LinkedIn page for Innovate Vancouver. To take a step back, I guess my advice would be really go after your dream job and don't just give up, but show your passion. If it's really, really your dream job, then you will draw up a proper CV that is targeted to that job. Tell people what you think that you can add to that specific job. Completely avoid templated CVs and templated job applications. Those are just, you don't stand out. It's called a pattern interrupt. When somebody reads your CV or your job application, they must go, oh, wow, this one doesn't look like all the others. So that's very important.
Now, sometimes I find individuals who are creative and entrepreneurial, who are passionate, are actually the most difficult to manage.
Oh, without a doubt.
So how do you keep them motivated?
I guess it's the curse of being the boss. It's the curse of having to deal with people. The ones that are going to be the best are the ones that are creative and driven, and they are unfortunately the ones that's going to be the hardest work. So yeah, I don't have a specific answer for you there. It's something I'm still dealing with. But I think, you also need to know those people and you need to understand how they function. And we sit with it right now. So now we need to scale. And in order to scale, I'm trying to implement systems and making sure that things work in a specific way. But the other problem that I'm dealing with right now is the people that got us here, the publishing partners that got us here, they're unfortunately not people that can fit in little boxes, if you know what I'm saying. If I'm like, this is the system, you have to fill out this form, and if the guy if this is the system, they just don't play by those rules. They don't do those systems. But they were the ones that got us to where we are at the moment. So now I have to kind of almost run two systems. I've got to run a system for the OGs that each do their own thing the way they want. And then I need to put a new system in place for scaling and dealing with training any new partners that come in. It's not a simple, never a simple solution.
This got me thinking, maybe creative individuals shouldn't be managed. I think they should be managing other people.
Sometimes, but I mean, there's just so many different people. Have you ever heard, there's a number of psychometric tests that you can have your people do that I think it will cost like $75 or $85 a test. And it will tell you who they are. Are they a creator? Are they a lord? Are they a superstar? They've got all these names, and it's around this little circle where every person fits in. It's all about understanding who you're dealing with, because if you know what the personality is that you're dealing with, you also understand how to deal with them better. Creative people are great, but they're not always great managers, because their creativity is a really, really wide phrase. I mean, creativity can mean a number of things. You could be very creative in design, but not very creative in managing or developing, so I don't think it's as simple as that.
It isn't. And I think creativity is, in essence, chaos, beautiful chaos.
Exactly. I love that.
When you add the element of managing people into creativity and chaos, that's even more complexity. So I've been trying to figure this out lately. How do we motivate creative individuals? And I think next time what I'm going to try is co-creating a vision, bringing the business requirements to the creative individual, co-creating the vision, and letting them define the rules themselves in order to get to the mutual goals, and then provide the planners, the folks who provide structure underneath them to help them tame the chaos that's going on. And I think I might give that a try. It's a very interesting journey trying to manage individuals who are exactly like yourself. And I think that's also one thing I've been trying to figure out my whole life is, how do I manage myself?
Exactly. I was just about to say, trying to manage creative individuals, like I'm struggling to manage myself half the time. I think you're onto something. Look, there's lots of psychology that says that if you make people feel like they have a say or a hand into what's going to happen, then they are much more likely to support it and to actually go through with it and do a good job. As opposed to walking in and saying, hey, do this. If you walk in and you go, hey, how do you think we should do this? Let's come up with an idea, or let's come up with a strategy. And then you are tied to that strategy. The person is much more likely to push it, because then it was their idea, it was their strategy, or they had a hand in it, as opposed to just being told how they should do stuff.
I love that. Great tip. Now, the last question for you, Kelly. The job market is constantly changing and evolving with advancing technologies. Some of the jobs that existed 10 years ago don't even exist today, thanks to technology. Can you share some advice with the young generation on how we can adapt to this fast changing business environment?
That's another interesting thing, because this business environment is changing, and it's just speeding up every year, faster and faster. I mean, right now we're looking at all the AI stuff that's coming in, and that's going to completely, a lot of businesses, it's on the upend, a lot of career opportunities, a lot of things are going to change over the next year. I think my best advice to keep up with things is to always just keep an open mind and to constantly be learning. Don't go into a bubble. Be there. Subscribe to the newsletters of what the latest thing is that's coming out. Just kind of keep an eye on what's happening around you in your specific career path, or what you were planning, or in your environment. Just keep an eye on what's going on, and constantly think about how it's going to change, and try and see, what was that saying? Don't skate where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going to be, type of thing. There's not much else that you can do. The best thing you can do is to stay on top of the latest news and the latest developments and learn.
Life is a journey for adventures and lifelong learning.
Correct. You cannot stop learning. You've got to stay informed. You can't stop learning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Callie, for coming on to the show today. It is such an honor to have you here, and we can't wait to also be on your podcast as well.
One of these days, as soon as we got it ready. Thanks, Alina.
Thank you.